Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It is New Year's Eve, 2025, and we are about to enter the year of the horse, 2026. And for the very last piece of content that we're going to do this year, we're going to hold a little award show. Now, this stream, which you're watching right now, is probably going to last only 1 hour because there's not really a lot of categories. There's not like a bajillion, gazillion categories to like go over. Instead, there's like, I guess maybe under 10 or so. I don't know. But we'll see what happens as this live stream goes on. So, yeah, the war in Ukraine in 2025 has been just as interesting as 2024 has been. A lot of things were going down this year that made it somewhat of a worthy, if not more, I guess, I don't know. If the war in Ukraine were a series of movies, 2022 would be seen as the original, like, first, I don't know. Like, I guess everyone would say that the original was the best one out of all of them, okay? But the second movie, like the first sequel that came after that, was garbage. Though a lot of people like to talk about the Battle of Artyomovsk or Bakhmut, but I disagree. I think it's a crappy. I don't know. It was a nothing burger year largely. Now 2024, at first it started off as a very slow year, like 2023 was, but then somewhere in summer, like that year. I mean, honestly, I think the real turning point was really that Kharkov offensive, which didn't really last for like much, like long or something like that. They advanced like barely like from the border area and only reached as far as like Lipsy and Volchansk. But as of today's video, Volchansk is under Russian control, but Lipsy is not at all. It is still under firm Ukrainian control, but I don't know for much how longer. But yeah, ever since that Kharkiv offensive last like May of 2024, the Russians have been moving, and moving. And by the end of this year, they now have over 55% control over Donetsk region. They increased their control over the Zaporizhzhia region to now, I think, 80%. And they even entered Dnipropetrovsk region, which is an area largely untouched by infantry fighting. So, with that all being said, we are going to go over who I thought did well this year in 2025, not just in Ukraine, but also throughout the entire globe. So, let's first start off with the worst Russian army group in Ukraine. The nominees to start off are the group of forces Zapad. Now, the group of forces Zapad, or the Western group in like Ukraine, they are in charge of dealing with, I guess, the northern Donetsk and Kharkiv directions, largely Kupiansk and Liman. The Zapad group has been ridiculed heavily for their inconsistencies. They have literally sucked in regards to consolidating their positions within the Kharkiv region itself. And also, Zapad has also been accused of lying about the victories that they have achieved in eastern Ukraine. Unfortunately for them, they do have some company. And that company is Group North, which was once led by, I think, General Alexander Lapin, who many point the finger for the failures in the Kharkiv region back in September 2022, when the Ukrainians just steamrolled them over all the way back to Lugansk region. Well, mostly. The Russians were able to keep a small chunk of the Kharkiv region under their control, but alas, it was really not that much. It was only 5% or so left of it. And as of the recording that we're doing right now, this live stream that is, they are still trying to get back all those territories that they lost that year. The North Group actually did make some progress as of late, as you all know, by taking the town of Volchansk, and they have also attempted to break out from that area as well, because of taking Volchansk, that is. And they have also gotten better in Sumy as of late, though I will say that they still have a long ways to go. But yeah, North Group is a nominee mainly because of Lapin's constant failures, though many people do like to point out that they were successful in kicking out the armed forces of Ukraine from the Kursk region. So that kind of helps them in regard to avoiding being rewarded the worst army group in Ukraine. So you could argue North Group did get shit done this year. Now, the next nominee on the list is the group of forces Dnieper. The Dnieper group is led by the VDV leader / General Mikhail Teplensky. Now, Teplensky, I honestly think is a decent general, but here's the thing. I don't really think his specialty really is in offense. And as we've seen in the Zaporizhia and Kherson regions in the last couple of years, I just don't think that is his greatest strength. They seem to be suffering from the same problems as Zapad is when it comes to their offense. Though I will say that their defense is very good, and they were able to hold off the armed forces of Ukraine from counterattacking within their positions in the Zaporizhia region. But as I said, they are a nominee for the worst Russian army group in the country, and my biggest problem with them is that, just like Zapad, they are not very consistent and also lack transparency with their reportings from the ground. They literally claim that they have taken a town or a village, when in reality it's still either contested or under the control of the armed forces of Ukraine. Take Mala Takhmachka, for instance. The Russians claimed that they took it, but obviously there was just no evidence whatsoever to support those claims. Now, as of recording this, the group of forces Dnieper are moving, and it seems so far that their recent pushes have so far been a moderate success, though nothing too special yet. So yeah, for those reasons, I will put Dnieper group in the category for worst army group. And then after them, it's Group Yug, or South. Now, here's the thing. Since 2022, they have virtually done nothing. Literally, nothing at all. Nothing in 2023, and almost exactly nothing at all in 2024. And for the most part, in 2025, it was looking to be the same old shit. However, things have been going a lot better for them as of late. They have finally captured Siversk, and they are about to meet up with their Zapad counterparts on the Donetsk River. In addition, they have also captured the cities of Toretsk and Chazavyar, along with also contesting for the city of Konstantinovka, too, in the Donetsk region. They've also been making some advances, too, in the direction of Slavyansk and the Kramatorsk. So I honestly think that the Yug group has definitely improved in the second half of 2025. And when it comes to like how it will impact them when it comes to voting in this category, I feel like it's going to hurt them significantly. And it all but narrows things down between Zapad and North. And so, my friends, it's time to determine who the winner is. For worst Russian army group in Ukraine goes to... No surprise. The Moscow Military District, also known as the Group of Forces West / Zapad. There was absolutely no doubt. They are the worst group. Of all of the Russian army groupings in Ukraine, this one has to be the absolute most poorly performing. When you compare them to guys like Vostok, Group Center, and now even Yug, like for God's sakes, Yug, these guys have really not gotten a lot done. Though I will point out that not all is lost for them going into 2026. You see, they are actually in a position to finally start redeeming themselves. However, in order for them to really get things going, like within the Kharkov region, they need to take the city of Kupiansk. And what really sealed their fate as the winner in this category was the fiasco that took place in Kupiansk. They claim that they have captured the city from the AFU. And to be honest, it looked like that they had done just that. Like in October and November, it was looking like they had captured Kupiansk from the Ukrainians. But in December, as every single one of you knows by now, it turns out that they didn't control as much as they initially claimed they did. They raised flags. Yeah, they infiltrated the southern and western sections of the whole city. They really did, but at the end of the day, they didn't really solidify their control over the city. And in addition, when the Ukrainians counterattacked, they once again repeated the same error that they made 3 years ago in the Kharkiv region, and that was, of course, being outmanned by them. This is like during a time when the Ukrainians are having severe manpower shortages. And the fact that Zapad failed to take advantage of this, along with not clearing the eastern side of the Oskar River first, I honestly don't know what the hell is going on with this grouping. I think they are corrupt, incompetent, and they need to really get their act together. Because in order for Russia to make any further progress in Kharkov Oblast in 2026, these guys need to get their act together. Because if they don't, then they're definitely going to be setting back the Russian army another year or so in eastern Ukraine. So yeah, the winner is the Moscow Military District West / Zapad group. Now, to the next category. Who is the best Russian army grouping in Ukraine? By the way, I want to get into the chat just a little bit. Which is less than 1% of Ukrainian territory. Dude, get the hell out of here. Nobody cares about that. You're sugarcoating the losses that the armed forces of Ukraine have had in 2025. They have been getting their asses completely whooped. Not just in on the ground, but also from the air too. Have you forgotten and not remember like the amount of drone strikes there have been, along with the like a massive amounts of like hits that the Ukrainians have took on their energy facilities. Now you could argue that the same thing has happened to the Russians, but the difference is that the Russians don't get as many blackouts. They seem more equipped and prepared to deal with something like that. The Ukrainians, on the other hand, they've been getting blackout after blackout, like on a non-stop basis. I don't know if you're a Ukraine fanboy, but come on, man, this is complete cope. Who cares if it's 1% of Ukrainian territory? The fact is, the Russian army moved and the Ukrainians largely did not in 2025. They sucked. Now, but anyway, getting back to this category, Best Russian Army Group in Ukraine. So, the nominees are the Group of Forces East, also known as Vostok, the Group of Forces Center, the Group of Forces South, the Group of Forces North, Dnieper, and Zapad. Now, every group on this list has made progress in some shape or form, but we have to narrow it down. And as far as I'm concerned, it's going to come down to Vostok versus Center. Now, the Group of Forces Center, we got to be honest with ourselves. They have done extraordinarily well in the last couple of years. In 2024, they steamrolled the armed forces of Ukraine in central Donetsk, and they finally secured the city, like the provincial capital of Donetsk itself, at long last from conventional artillery shellings, and reached the outskirts of Pokrovsk in Minograd, also known as Dmitrov and Krasnoyarsk. They captured Selidovo, as all of you know, and I think they also captured Karakove. I mean, and also, yeah, Avdiivka. They got a lot done in 2024. Obviously, people are going to say, oh, that's just a tiny, like, notch of territory. Well, guess what, dudes? That's not the point in a war like this. It's all about the attrition, and the Ukrainians took bigger losses in 2024 than the Russians did that year. And by capturing those territories in central and also southern Donetsk regions, they got close within Dnipropetrovsk region. It also doesn't help that in 2025, the Ukrainians finally had to fight Group Center in the cities of Pokrovsk and Minograd, or Krasnoyarsk and Dmitrov, as I mentioned earlier. However, we have to also be honest with ourselves. Group Center got kind of bogged down this year when compared to last year. They weren't really going as fast as they did the year prior, and it seems to me that they did the bulk of their fighting literally in the Pokrovsk direction, and also Dobropole direction as well. They did advance a little bit into the Dnipropetrovsk region via Novopavlovka, and have captured a significant chunk of the village, though they have not captured the entirety of the area just yet. Also, in addition, the armed forces of Ukraine also dealt with some very bad losses in Dobropole direction, and unfortunately for them, that counteroffensive, which they hoped would I guess result in the lifting of the siege of Minograd, did not work out. Despite, of course, the early issues in that defensive effort against the Ukrainians there, the Group of Forces Center were able to stop the AFU in their tracks, and they were able to reverse a significant portion of that attack, going southward towards Pokrovsk and Minograd. So yeah, by the end of this year, the Russians were able to capture Pokrovsk, Minograd, Rodensky, and also basically put a foothold in the direction of Dobropila. And as far as I'm concerned right now, the Russians are also fighting right now for Novy Donbass and Bieletsky, which, as I said, this is the Dobropila direction. This is no longer the Pokrovsk direction. And also, Group of Forces Yug, as I mentioned in the previous category, has really redeemed itself this year. Probably in the later phase of this year, probably around October or November of 2025. They not only finally gotten their act together, but they managed to literally capitalize on the absence of Ukrainian soldiers in the direction that they were fighting in, which finally allowed them to capture the town of Siversk, which the Russians had failed to do for the last 3 years. But now that they've gotten it, they are in a position to really cause major problems for the Ukrainians logistics-wise in 2026. And that is why going into the new year, I predict that they are going to reach the outskirts of Sloviansk and the Kramatorsk, which in turn will lead to a partial collapse of the Ukrainian army, not just in that direction, but maybe also in the Kharkiv region as well. But yeah, the capture of Siversk and what came after that, along with also their summertime captures of Chasiv Yar and Teretsk, along with also finally reaching the city of Konstantinovka itself. They really gotten their act together, as I said. They really stopped sucking this year. Like, it's quite amazing how they really turned things around in the last couple of months. But as I said, I think they're not really going to win this category because of the next group that I will mention, and that is the group of forces Vostok. Vostok, what can I say about them that hasn't been said already? They are probably the most consistent and most well-run part of the entire Russian army in Ukraine. I really don't know how else to really praise them. They are transparent. They show geolocations of like their claimed captures. They really care about actually winning. And they entered the Dnipropetrovsk region. Like, that is unheard of in this very conflict. Like, for the last few years. Like, it's downright insane that they were finally able to break into Dnipropetrovsk region and capture 300 plus square kilometers of it. That is really good, like, all things considered. And they took Nestor Makhno's hometown, Gule Pule. Also, the Vostok group is also going to allow the group of forces Dnieper, who are more of a defensive grouping in Ukraine, like, they're going to bail them out in 2026. Those guys are now finally moving because of what they did in Gule Pule. That it just shows you just how effective they are at fighting and also being able to move. Like, they literally, I mean, I don't know how else to praise the Vostok group. They're not as corrupt. They're transparent. They're competent. And they use drones so well. And the funniest thing is that they do this with not as many men as the group of forces center has. Like, it's, how can I even say anything more? They're that good. Now, Zapad and Dnieper were also considered for best army groupings in Ukraine, but mainly because, I don't know, I wanted to be a little more democratic and also just to joke a bit, but I gave them a chance genuinely. And as you would expect, they didn't really get anywhere close to 10% of the vote, let alone 5. Now, oh, actually, no, Zapad actually got 6%, and Dnieper got 5%. North got only 1. I'm reading this like on the Telegram right now. Like, holy crap, they actually got more votes than I expected. But it doesn't matter. Those guys didn't do as well in 2025, but I'm sure they're going to improve significantly next year, considering that the AFU's issues are only going to worsen. So, and the winner for Best Russian Army Group in Ukraine is the Eastern Military District, aka Eastern Vostok. Again, what can I say that hasn't been said about these guys already? They're just absolutely amazing. And I think they're in for a great 2026 as well. I mean, if you guys have not seen their Telegram channel, which is VoenDV, check it out if you haven't already. It's a great channel if you need information on what's happening on their end. But also, they released a teaser video, which I think was partially AI generated, or maybe it was genuinely handcrafted with like CGI animation. They literally are already hyping up about what they're going to do in 2026. So the work for them never stops. Their work ethic is just amazing. Like, I don't know how to glaze these guys any more than I have already. So let's move on to the next nominee. Let's see here. Okay. Sorry for going back and forth a bit, but here we are. Most important battle. So, the nominees are Pokrovsk and Minograd. Next is Gulay-Pulay, home of Nestor Makhno. Next is Kupiansk, then Volchansk, Siversk, Chasivyar, and Toretsk. Now, breaking down each nominee, Pokrovsk, or Krasnoyarsk, is arguably 2025's Avdiivka. If not like the present day Mariupol. Pokrovsk and Minograd are essentially the same battle with the same like shit at stake. Whoever like holds Pokrovsk and Minograd would not only have a good hub of logistics in Donbas region, but they would also have a gateway to Dnipropetrovsk. And then you have Gulay-Pulay. As I said, it is the home of the anarchist Nestor Makhno, but it's also a decent logistics hub in its own right, and it's a pathway towards the city of Zaporizhia and also towards the Dnipropetrovsk region as well. And then you have the city of Kupiansk, which is a pretty sizable city in the Kharkov region. And then you got Volchansk, which is up north. It borders Russia, but it's like a major like point, like a starting point for doing any pushes, either towards Belgrade from the Ukrainian side, or towards Kupiansk and Veliki Burlik and Chuagiv from the Russian side. And then you got Siversk, which would allow the Russians to finally take Liman, which in turn would finally allow them to take the cities of Slavyansk and Kramatorsk. And then you got Chasivyar, which is the main pathway to Kramatorsk and Konstantinovka. And then finally Toretsk, which is also a pathway to Kramatorsk. I have a pretty good idea who's probably going to win in this category. So, the winner for most important battle goes to... Was this a contest? Pokrovsk and Minograd. Literally, most of the people who voted for this, like, everybody knew what was at stake. There was no doubt what was the most important. Pokrovsk and Minograd is arguably the biggest battle of this war in over 3 years. There has been nothing like it in a very long time. And the fact that it's even a miracle that it hasn't been completely destroyed. Like, both cities have not been completely destroyed at all. Unlike Bakhmut. Like, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, yeah, if you look at the videos, yeah, they're obviously damaged, but they can be rebuilt. Like, it's not like apocalyptic end of the world, like destruction. The cities are salvageable. And also, yeah, the Russians now have a direct pathway towards the Dnipropetrovsk region. And they're also going to be using it to attack also Dobropila 2 in 2026. I mean, there's a lot of things to say about this battle that make it so important. You had like the flag raisings. You had the Ukrainians lying and coping about them still being there. Deep State, which by the way just updated earlier today, admits that the city's all but lost. So, Pokrovsk and Minograd wins the most important battle reward for this year's Hague award show. Again, it's not really surprising. I don't really know how else to describe the importance of this campaign. It's arguably the most decisive battle for the Donbas probably since Debaltsevo in 2015 when the Ukrainians lost that. In fact, that was what caused them to beg the Russians for a ceasefire, which they got one. Though in retrospective, the Russians probably shouldn't have signed Minsk II, but they gave them a chance. And years later, we all know what happened. The Ukrainians obviously didn't abide by that agreement, and we got today's conflict. I don't expect Pokrovsk and Minograd to be the final battle of the war. In fact, I think it's going to be further north or further west where you're going to see the last battle in Ukraine. But yeah, this one is very decisive, potentially, when it comes to control over Donetsk region. Next up, we got Best Head of State. So the nominees are Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping, Narendra Modi, Donald Trump, and Volodymyr Zelensky. Vladimir Putin has had to deal with so much adversity in 2025. Like, it's complete insanity. People were saying that his regime was cooked. People were saying that the economy was going to collapse and that Russia would no longer be able to advance across the country. People were saying that he was a loser, washed up, old and sick, dying. But he has managed to prevail. He is not only still in full control of Russia, but his consolidation of power is only getting stronger as any minute passes by. And he's still very popular and beloved among his people. Xi Jinping, the president or dictator of the People's Republic of China, has continued to build his country up despite, of course, a slow economy. But China, as of right now, is still in good shape. They seem to be on good terms with the entire international community. And also, they have not started any foreign wars. China has also been able to build up its infrastructure still, which I think is obviously their number one greatest trait. Like expanding their rails, building up new roads, bridges, and even going as far as to making flying cars, of all things. Like, it's amazing. And then you have Narendra Modi. Modi has been playing both sides, but he has been doing it so well without really pissing many people off. And it's thanks to him that his people have cheap oil and gas. And also, India's economy and population continue to grow. Next up, you got, of course, the American president, Donald Trump, who has deported millions of illegal immigrants. And also him pulling off some of the gutsiest tariffs that I've ever seen. And also his ability to finally stop the Israeli genocide of Gaza, though I will say that I don't know if it's going to hold for long. And also the fact that he was able to stop the Nothing Burger itself, India versus Pakistan. And then you got Volodymyr Zelensky, who has dealt with so much adversity. His country is clearly crumbling, but he's still able to cling to power. And the winner for this category goes to, again, no surprise, Vladimir Putin. I don't know if it's my subscriber base being overly super Z, we love Russia, or it's the fact that this is true. I mean, Vladimir Putin is not perfect by any means, and I personally voted for Xi Jinping, but I understand where people are coming from with this vote. As I said, he has been dealing with so much crap in the last few years, and the fact that he's able to hold on like for this long is just outright amazing. Like Vladimir Putin is on track to being like literally one of Russia's great leaders of all time. But that's of course going to come down to how he does in Ukraine. Like he's gambling his entire legacy on that war. And if it were to fail, then yeah, he's definitely going to be looked at as a disgrace. But if they were able to win it, like decisively that is, which I do think they're on the path to doing, then yeah, he's an all-time great leader in the history of Russia. Not just in Imperial Russia, but the Soviet Union and, of course, the Russian Federation. Next up, we have worst head of state. Our nominees are U.S. President Donald Trump. Again, his gutsy tariffs have not really paid off too well. And then you have Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Nicolas Maduro, the President of Venezuela. Ahmed al-Shara, a.k.a. Abu Muhammad al-Jilani, the former leader of al-Nusra Front, Al-Qaeda in Syria, also now the president of Syria itself. French President Emmanuel Macron, and Ukrainian President/dictator Volodymyr Zelensky. Now, I was just talking about the best head of states. You could argue that Putin should be here because of the fact that his country keeps getting struck by Ukrainian drones, and also the fact that they weren't able to achieve the decisive victory yet in Ukraine, along with a stagnant economy, or slow-growing economy, that is. But here's the thing. My criteria for worst head of state really comes down to many things, and I just don't think Vladimir Putin has done enough bad in order to get on the list of the nominees. But as for Donald Trump, he definitely has. This year, there were a lot of expectations for him from the conservatives, and he has been an outright disappointment. This president has touched the economy a lot more than he should have had. And now the U.S., like the American people, are completely cooked. They are not able to afford new houses. Like, they can't buy new houses anymore. They can only rent places now. Gas prices are still high in some states. Groceries are also somewhat still, like, expensive. Fast food is also still expensive as well. And this guy just keeps saying that he's going to end the war in Ukraine 24/7 when nothing ever happens. And his Venezuela policy is so weak. Like, so weak. Like, he promised he'd get rid of Maduro, but he hasn't. And then he makes deals with a guy who literally used to cheer on Osama bin Laden. How more corrupt can you get? And then there's the shady deal he made with Qatar on that pre-owned 747-800. I really don't know where even to like continue on with that. He's just terrible. And then next up, you got Keir Starmer. After a whole decade of failed Tory rule in the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer has been just, I am incredibly disappointed in him. This guy had an opportunity to really fix things again. And here's the thing. He was in a really good position too. his party, the Labour Party, that is, scored a decisive victory in the 2025 elections. And again, he fucking blew it. Oh wait, I think it was 2025. But anyway, the thing is, or no, 24, I think. Let me look. I think I got it wrong. Yep, it was 2024. My bad. So yeah, his party scored a huge victory. Oh yeah, the Epstein files. I forgot that shit. Yeah, his handling of the whole Epstein shit. Yeah, that might actually put him in grave danger of winning this award. So yeah, sorry about that, guys. I should have mentioned it. But anyway, getting back to Keir Starmer, there were a lot of hopes that this guy would fix Britain. There were a lot of hopes that he would really help the people out. And he just didn't. Migration has worsened. Crime is like skyrocketing in the country. And then you have people like killing each other, and also like the rise of extremist groups on both the far left and the far right also being a thing. I mean, Keir Starmer has just been an outright terrible prime minister in so many ways. His continued support for the war in Ukraine, his also, again, the migration issues, the accusations of him like being more authoritarian than he should be. And yeah, again, like a whole Epstein shit is impacting everyone. So yeah, Keir Starmer has not been good at all for the United Kingdom. In fact, I think he's going to be out of there a lot sooner than many people expect. And our next nominee is Nicolas Maduro. I mean, what can we say? Crappy economy, very mumbling leader of Venezuela, bus driver, and the fact that he rigged an election. And then next up, we got the former leader of Al-Qaeda, Ahmed al-Shara. Again, I mean, he hasn't united the country. The country is still divided. He has failed to stop the sectarian violence. I just feel like he hasn't really done enough to reconcile the Syrian people. I feel like there's still a lot of Al-Qaeda in him, and that is why I put him on this list. Emmanuel Macron, again, same reasons as Starmer is on there. Just an absolute failure to his people, and also him getting booted out of West Africa. And then Volodymyr Zelensky for his inability to make peace with the Russians. And the winner for worst head of state goes to Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer, as I said, just sucks. He's literally like one of the most hated men on this planet right now. He is boring and dull. Like, literally no charisma. He's more of a centrist than a true leftist. He is absolutely weak on foreign policy and also domestic. His immigration policies are crap. And he's appointed some very shady people, like Peter Mandelson. And then he fired him when the whole thing with Jeffrey Epstein came to light. It also didn't help that he welcomed an extremist to the UK, like back to the UK, despite this guy that praised violence and hatred towards certain groups. So he is absolutely horrible. And I think his stay as prime minister is going to be very short-lived. Next up, we got most improved head of state. Javier Milei for fixing up the Argentinian economy a bit. Kim Jong-un for his troop successes in the Kursk region, but also the fact that nothing ever happens in North Korea. And the fact that he's also building up new housing, too, for his people. Then you have Paul Kagame for his proxy successes in Congo. And also economic growth, too, in Rwanda. Then you have Irfan Ali 2 of a fucking, I think, Guyana, I think. Let me look it up again. I forgot. Oh, yeah, Guyana. Javier Milei is a strange and colorful character, but he's fun to watch like Donald Trump is, but I think he just might be a bit better than him. Kim Jong-un, I mean, what do you got to say about the guy that hasn't been said already? He's obviously sociopathic, a tyrannical leader, but he gets shit done. Paul Kagame, again, very successful African leader, and his militias in the DRC have taken control over major urban centers, taking advantage of a weak and crappy DRC army. And then you got, of course, Irfan Ali, who has also kept Guyana on a positive track. Not much to say than there has been already. And the winner for most improved state goes to, or most improved head of states, that is, sorry. I should probably fix this, that is. Let's see here. You probably all know who's probably going to win this award, by the way, just because of how edgy people in this community are. And the winner is Kim Jong-un. No surprise. His continued build-up of the North Korean nuclear program, his closening ties to Russia and China, like he's literally capitalizing on the new world order as we speak, and his people are benefiting from it. And that's another thing. He did absolutely nothing, and he won. And also, it doesn't help that his army's uniforms no longer look like they came out of the Cold War. Like, they now look like they're on par with, like, modern standards. Like, it's quite amazing where North Korea has gone in 2025. And I think this man is not going anywhere anytime soon. And it's going to be interesting what will happen with North Korea in the next 5 to 10 years, because if Russia wins the war in Ukraine, I think North Korea is like one of the few countries on this planet that has the most to gain from it, because the United States and Europe will be completely at Russia's mercy, because mainly for agricultural and geopolitical reasons. And because of that, I think Kim has the most to gain from it, other than Russia itself. And South Korea is not doing so hot as of right now. They are literally in the shitter as we speak, while North Korea, on the other hand, is stable and consistent with what it's doing. Biggest war criminal. This is where it gets a bit interesting. So your nominees are Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, or also known as Hemeti, who led the genocide of El Fashir and generally Darfur. Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, one of the most hated men in the world right now. Alexander Sirski, for literally being a yes man to Zelensky and being complicit in the deaths of many men and women who died in this war for nothing. And then Zelensky for roughly the same thing, except him giving the order, that is. And then you also have Vladimir Putin, of course, because why wouldn't Putin be here? It's obvious he should be there. And yeah. So, who do I personally think is the worst of the bunch? Well, personally, right now, I think Dagalo might be the worst war criminal of everybody, though I will say that Sirski is just as guilty as the others, because he literally leaves his men in cauldron by cauldron, and he doesn't give a shit. Like, the ego of Sirski and Zelensky is going to kill this military. Like, they will go extinct because of their refusal to take an obvious defeat when defeat is literally foreseeable. But as I said, they don't care and just want to get more money from the United States and European governments. But at the end of the day, the Gaza thing just doesn't leave anyone else's memory. It just doesn't. And for that reason, the winner for biggest war criminal goes to Benjamin Netanyahu. What can I say? Bastard. Now, next up, biggest nothing burger. Our nominees are the near conflict between India versus Pakistan, the Doropila offensive that happened or didn't really happen in August, Trump's attempt to peacefully conquer Greenland, Trump threatening to remove Maduro, Trump's Alaska summit, and then Operation Spiderweb. Now, India versus Pakistan is, in my opinion, one of the most laughable, series of events I've seen in a while. Everything about that whole thing screams, complete, fucking cringe to me. I literally could not, I literally was having issue with trying to, figure out, what was real and what wasn't in that whole, ordeal. And in the end, it turned out that almost everything from that conflict was fake or AI generated. That shit was hilarious to watch, but it really hurt my brain so fucking much. And then you have the Doropila offensive, which Deep State was freaking out about, but then it turned out to be a complete nothing burger. And then the Russians got turned back, even though they're now starting to get their act together in that direction for real this time around. And then you have Trump trying to take over Greenland, which went nowhere. It's still under Danish control. And then you got Donald Trump trying to remove Nicolas Maduro, which so far hasn't gone anywhere. And then you had the Alaska summit, which resulted in no agreements. And then you had Operation Spiderweb, which the Ukrainians were proudly proclaiming to be a great victory for them. But in the end, it really resulted in nothing. It was another nothing burger. So, with that all being said, who do I think is the most worthy of everybody on this list? I mean, India versus Pakistan was just a pain to watch. And also, the whole Greenland thing was just cringeworthy and facepalm worthy. Donald Trump was just being a complete clown with Greenland. We still don't have it. And the Euros are just shitting all over us, right now because of it. His threat to remove Maduro hasn't materialized yet either, so I think he's chickened out so far with that. And then, you have Alaska. He hyped that up, and he was actually believing that the conflict was going to end at that period in time, and nothing happened. It was a complete joke. Now, okay, here's where things get very interesting, guys. So we have a very close vote here between India versus Pakistan versus Trump's attempt to take over Greenland. The takeover of Greenland has 30% of the votes, okay? So let's divide that, okay? So 0.19... No, hold on a second. That's incorrect. So 255 divided by 0.30. So that would be 85 votes. And then 255 divided by, let's see here, 0.28. I guess 91. And then you got 19 votes India versus Pakistan Discord. So that's the tiebreaker because I did this poll too on Discord too. So yeah, here's the thing. India versus Pakistan came at second place on this Telegram vote. But first place overall on Discord. And for that reason, The reward for biggest nothing burger goes to India versus Pakistan. Literally. This one was absolute garbage to watch. Even AMK Mapping said it was the worst thing he has ever had to observe. A lot of people thought there was going to be a real full-scale invasion from India into Pakistan, but it didn't happen. And nothing from Pakistan, too. Instead, we got a few French jets shot down, which embarrassed them, and the Chinese looking absolutely excellent with the way that they designed their airplanes. So yeah, India versus Pakistan is the winner for biggest nothing burger of 2025. Rookie of the Year. Now, this is also where it gets controversial. So the first nominee is Ahmed al-Shara, a.k.a. Abu Muhammad al-Jilani, the former leader of Al-Qaeda in Syria. Then you got Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada. Sene Takachi, the first female ever to be Prime Minister of Japan. Lee Jae-myung, who took over for the disgraced Yoon Suk-yeol. Russian General Valery Sotachuk. And Yevgeny Nikiforov. I would say that Al-Jilani is probably the most interesting of the nominees because he has taken control over a broken and divided country. And many were anticipating him to be caught up in another civil war almost immediately. And while there have been clashes here and there, Syria has not fallen into chaos quite yet. And with the sanctions being lifted thanks to his pragmatic approach, along with also being friendly towards all of the global powers, such as the USA, Russia, China, and the EU. Ahmed al-Shara, or Abu Muhammad al-Jilani, has proven so many people wrong. And Syria, largely, despite its obvious issues, is on the path towards stability. Though he still has long ways to go. Because, of course, of the issues with the Druze, the SDF, aka the Kurds, and the Alawites. Also Israel, too. Mark Carney took over for the disgraced Justin Trudeau and has so far done a decent job. Takaichi has also gotten a decent approval rating for her foreign policy towards China, and also for her efforts so far in trying to save the demographics and economy of Japan. Lee Jae-myung has so far tried to also heal the nation of South Korea from the big scandals of yesteryear, and the attempted coup as well, around the same time as Assad's overthrow. Valery Solochuk, with his efforts in the fucking cities of Pokrovsk and Minograd, and also him pushing into the Dnipropetrovsk region, like being the very first Russian army grouping to push in there. And then you got Yevgeny Nikiforov, who took on an inconsistent North group and has now turned them around, doing nothing but winning ever since he took over. And the winner for Rookie of the Year goes to Ahmed al-Shara, also known as Abu Muhammad al-Jilani. This one was kind of not really a surprise, again, because a lot of people had their eyes on this guy, because people are wondering what a jihadist would look like as a politician. And, well, here's your answer. So far, not too bad. But he has to do something about the SDF before he can be considered for best head of state or improved head of state next year. But so far, I think he's on the right track, especially now that he has removed some zeros from the Syrian currency. And inflation is going down too. And as far as I know, Syrians are getting all the food, water, and heat that they need to survive across all of winter. And they seem to be traveling across most of Syria quite well because of him. So, let's move on to the next category. Offensive Player of the Year. Now, this one is not going to really surprise a lot of people, but the very first nominee is Andrei Ivaneyev, the leader of the Eastern Military District, also known as Vostok Group. His accomplishments cannot be understated. He took Gulay-Pulay, the hometown of Nestor Makhno. He took 300 square kilometers of the Dnipropetrovsk region. He cleared out the entirety of southern Donetsk region too from the armed forces of Ukraine. And has led to so many, doomers being created because of his competence, his great work ethic, and the fact that he also managed to succeed with an army without as many men as his counterparts in Dnieper and Center. Andrei Ivaneyev is on path to being one of Russia's most effective and remembered generals of the 21st century, should his successes next year continue. Then you have Valery Sodachuk, who took the city of Pokrovsk, Minograd, and the town of Rodensky, and is also on path to taking control of Dobropila too. Then you have the leader of the STC, also known as South Yemen, Adaris al-Zubadi, who swiftly took control over South Yemen in a matter of a week. Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, despite being dealt a devastating defeat in Khartoum, has not only finished off taking control over Darfur, but has also now seized the oil fields too in northern Sudan. Well, the southern part of northern Sudan, that is. And then you have Sultani Makenga, the leader of the M23 Alliance in DRC, seizing control over Gamal, Bukavu, and also creeping up on the border with Burundi, and also clearing out the entirety of Rwanda's border of DRC troops. He is successfully doing the job that his boss appointed him to do. And the winner for Offensive Player of the Year goes to Andrei Ivaneyev, the leader of Vostok Group. The fact that he captured Gulay-Pulay in 1 month is amazing. There's really nothing more to say. He literally executed the offensive as well as he possibly could. He literally did everything that I expected him to do. And I think a lot of people are going to call for this guy to be promoted even higher within the Kremlin. But I don't think his job is done quite yet. And knowing this man, I think he's not going to let all the success get to his head. He seems like the kind of guy who just wants to keep winning. And then for Defensive Player of the Year. Oh, I misspelled. Hold on. It's one F, not two Fs. Our nominees are Mikhail Teplensky, the leader of the group of forces Dnieper. He has managed to once again successfully defend the front line in the main Zaporizhia direction and the Kherson direction too, along the Dnieper River. Then you have Valery Sodachuk, who was able to prevent the Ukrainians from lifting the siege of Minograd. And then you have Yevgeny Nikiforov, who stabilized the situation in Sumy region. And then you got Hikmat al-Hijri, who managed to kick out the Sunni extremist groups from Sueda Governorate. And Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, for being able to stop the Sudanese junta's efforts into taking or retaking parts of Darfur region. And the winner for Defensive Player of the Year goes to Mikhail Teplensky, leader of Group of Forces Dnieper and the VDV. Now, this guy is inconsistent when it comes to offensive capabilities, and I predict that Ivanev and his guys in the Vostok group are going to bail this dude out. And when that happens, I think we're going to see him really shine offensively, but I think in general, though, I don't think he's that great of an offensive general. He definitely suffers from many issues on the front, as we've seen in the Orkiv direction. But otherwise, defensively, this guy gets it done. It's him. What more can I say that hasn't been said already about Teplensky? Great defensive general. And next up, we have best source. This is the second to last source before we end today's show. First, we got Suryak, Anatoly Radov, His Holy Drunkenness, the Kiwi himself, AMK Mapping, Z Committee, Voen DV, Northwind, Divjin, Weeb Union, Military Summary, and Deep State. Suryak is an OG of this community and has been around since the middle phase of the Syrian conflict. His ability to deliver updates in an accurate and specific manner cannot be stated. Anatoly Radov for keeping everybody up to date. Like, he's literally the main source for Suryak when it comes to Russian advances, along with AMK mapping. And an AMK for literally tracking everything when it comes to drone and missile strikes from both the Russians and the Ukrainians. Z Committee for probably being the most accurate pro-Russian mapper, with actual sources on the ground to prove his claims. Voen DV for showing off geolocations of claimed captures. The Northwind for similar reasons, but also for their transparency and for also showing all sorts of videos from their directions of operation. Divjin for their coloring of their maps. Like, I like their map design. Weeb Union for mixing up all the sources into one, which in turn would make it very accurate. Military Summary for being, in my opinion, the best overall Ukraine war YouTuber. Like, literally, I think he's the best Ukraine war source. Like, if you are like want to watch a video or something, I think it's him. And then Deep State for being the overall best pro-Ukraine source, like, overall. And the winner for best source goes to El Cadillo, Suryak Maps. Suryak, I mean, what can I say? He's old school. He's the original, like one of the original mappers. He absolutely deserves this. But I feel like his time is running out. I don't know if his passion is there as it used to be in the past, but he definitely deserves this award once again for the fact that his maps are accurate like 3/4 of the time, and also the fact that he's willing to correct mistakes when there are mistakes being made. Suryak is also someone who advocates for secularism over religious theocracy, and a person who just wants to see world peace. So I cannot thank Suryak enough for his work, and I wish him nothing but a prosperous 2026. Now, next up, most valuable player. This will be the last reward I will give. So, our nominees are Commander of the Ground Forces of the Russian Federation, Andrei Mordachev. Andrei Ivanev, the commander of the Vostok Group. Sergei Bodnikov, the head of Rubicon. Valery Gerasimov, the chief of the General Staff. And Vasil Malyuk, the head of the SBU. Andrei Mordachev was the reason why the Russian army returned to form, like their 2022 form, that is, in 2024. It was all him. It all started with him. Andrei Ivaniev. I mean, what can I say that hasn't already been said about the guy? He literally took hold of a reformed Vostok group and made them even better. Like, took them to the next level. And then Sergei Bodnikov, being the head of Rubicon, striking targets with precision and accuracy. Valery Gerasimov, for letting the guys do as they please, though for better or worse. And Vasil Malyuk for their hidden runs within Russia. Obviously, for Operation Spiderweb, the refinery strikes that they hit within the Russian Federation itself, and also their successful assassinations of certain Russian officials, too. And the winner for most valuable player goes to... Let's just combine that with the Discord votes. Andrei Mordachev, the commander of the ground forces. This one was very close. Very close. At least on Telegram. But on Discord, it wasn't that close. Andrei Mordachev literally carried over the success that the Russians made in 2024 and basically made it happen across the whole front. The whole front moved in 2025 because of him. At long last, the Russians have not only returned to form like they did in 2022, but also they are now on track to achieving some victories that they have been looking to make, like that they were never able to make, like, across the whole war since that time frame. Like, when the war first started and when it became a stagnant, like, stalemate after Kherson. Like, when the city was recaptured by the Russian army. Like, it's because of this man. Because of his efforts. Which all started with Avdiivka, that we're here today. And that the map is now more favorable to the Russians than it has ever been before. Andrei Mordachev is the reason why the Russian army doesn't suck as it used to in the last couple of years. It's all him. What can I say? He deserves this award. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to conclude this year's Hague Awards. I hope every single one of you enjoyed this show, and I appreciate every single one of you who were able to watch this. And I hope for next year, when we come back to this show, this channel will not only be bigger, but we will be able to come up maybe with some more categories and perhaps fresh new faces to maybe win them. Because I like some parody, and I also wouldn't mind a bit of competition between groups of people looking to get shit done. Not just on the front line, but also in global affairs as well. I hope every single one of you has a great, happy new year. Whether if you're in the West, in the East, in the developing world, it doesn't matter. In Year of the Horse, I wish every single one of you a prosperous, safe, and healthy 2026. I hope to see every single one of you next time, and I hope all of you take good care of yourselves. So, with that being said, have a happy 2026, and I'll see you all in a week and a half from now. Bye-bye, and peace out.